right, this will be lesson 14.5, drawing conclusions from graphs. So your lesson today, they're going to have you either complete a graph or they're going to give you a graph that we have learned in the previous lessons, and they are going to have you make observations about the data. So looking at the solve and share, says 7 students voted for turtle as their favorite pond animal. 10 students voted for frog. 4 students voted for fish. Make a picture graph to show the data. Write 2 things you notice about the data. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make our picture graph. So remember, a picture graph is going to use a symbol to represent our data. Down here in the key, it tells us we're using a star to represent each vote. So we need to go back up here and reread so we can figure out how many students voted for each pond animal. And I can see right here that 7 students voted for turtle. So we're going to draw 7 stars to represent those votes. Okay, we're going to go back up and find how many students voted for frog. And it looks like 10 students voted for frog. So we need to put 10 stars next to frog. And last is the fish, and 4 students voted for fish. Now you can pause your video if you need to, so that you can complete your picture graph before we go down here and make 2 statements. All right, so when you're ready, there's all kinds of things, conclusions that we could draw from our picture graph up here. You could tell me how many students like turtle and fish all together. You could tell me what the least favorite pond animal was or the most favorite pond animal was. You could tell me that more students liked frogs than fish. Okay, so there's all kinds of conclusions that you could draw from our graph. I'm going to give you one, and then I want you to come up with one on your own. So I'm going to say the favorite animal was frogs, and I know this because frogs had the most votes. Okay, so it's going to be your job to come up with one more statement here for the graph. Okay, once you have that, your own sentence wrote there, you can go ahead and turn your page so that you see the guided practice. And on the rest of your assignment, it looks like they're going to give you bar graphs. And you're going to read the bar graphs and solve the problems or answer their questions, okay? So I think you guys can handle the guided practice. We're gonna go ahead and look at the next page. This one uses the bar graph that shows the absences at school. So this graph is telling us how many students were absent on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I want to show you guys one thing that might help you before we go to answering our questions. So these are bar graph. These are bars on a bar graph, obviously. And sometimes what I like to do when I'm answering a whole bunch of questions about the same graph is it helps to write a number above each bar. So on Monday, how many students were absent? 5. And I like to do the same thing for Tuesday. 2. I'm going to do this for all of the bars in my graph, and it just helps to make it a little bit faster or a little easier when you go to answer questions. Wednesday was also 5. Thursday was 4. And Friday was 6. So if you want to do that on your assignment, it might help you also, okay? All right, so I'm going to let you read and answer most of these questions today, but I do want to look at number 3 real quick. And it asks, how many students in all were absent on Tuesday and Thursday? So we have to add Tuesday and Thursday together to get our answer. So we need to add 2 plus 4 to get our answer on number 3. Okay? And then I want you to pay attention to like number 4 and number 7. These questions have 2 answers, so make sure you answer both of their questions, okay? And then I'm going to look at number 8 with you before we move on. Number 8 says the graph shows the number of students absent last week. This week, 19 students were absent. Compare the number of students absent this week to the number of students absent last week. So they're telling us that this graph represents the number of students that were absent last week. How would we find out how many students were absent altogether last week? We would need to add all of those bars together. So since we've already wrote the numbers up here, it's going to make it really easy to write our first number sentence. We're going to add 5 plus 2 plus 5 plus 4 plus 6 together. That sum is going to tell us how many students were absent last week. And then we're going to compare that number to this week. And they told us that this week there were 19 students absent. Okay, so your job is to find the sum and then to compare the two numbers. When I say compare the two numbers, I'm talking about writing in the less than or greater than symbol in that circle there, okay? And that will take care of number 8. All right, so when you guys are ready, you can turn your page to number 9. Number 9 gives you another bar graph that shows animals on a farm. They have 4 different types of animals, and then of course the bars are going to tell you how many of each type of animal there are on the farm. If you want to write your numbers like I did on the first page, that might help you. Okay, I'll let you do the last 2 on your own. And then you need to answer the questions. 9 through 13 will all be about this graph. Okay? Let's look at 14 real quick together. 14 says, do you think the bars on a bar graph should all be the same color? Okay? Now, there is no right or wrong answer on this. I know when you guys did your assignment on the bar graphs, I recommended or I asked you guys to use different colors for each bar graph because in my opinion, it makes it a little bit easier to tell or to read the graph if each thing is a different color. Okay? But that is up to you. So your answer might be that yes, they should because it's easier to read the graph, or maybe you think that you can read it just fine with them all being the same color. So there's no right or wrong answer. You explain what you think, okay? All right, so your assignment is going to be 1 through 15. Make sure you read each question carefully because some of the questions have 2 answers. All right?